Hello guys. Today we are going to be doing the first part of our lecture series on Graph Mapper tool. Now, I have modeled this skyscraper and it is based on a design that's being done right now in Miami. It is a skyscraper and as you can see in the skyscraper, it has this bend, and you can see whoever was the architect used a graph mapper component to get this arc. Now, the graph mapper is basically a series of different sorts of mathematical arcs, and we'll go over how we develop it. And we'll also go over how we're going to make these geometries. We're going to use the sweep 2 function, and one of the things that we'll go over is that in the sweep 2 functions, we will be using multiple sections. So you don't necessarily have to use one section, even though it just says one section. I've done a Rhino workshop where we go over the sweep functions, and I do show where it's helpful to use multiple sections, and we'll go over this in this video. So let's get to work. Okay, let's start a new file. I'm gonna click Control N. I'm gonna click Control N for the Rhino file because I want my units in feet as large objects and feet. So I'm gonna click on that. Now the first thing that I want to do, let me go in perspective mode. Let me make a rectangle. I want to use let me put my bifocals tool, that always helps. I will put my construct domain component. I am going to put this expression editor as negative x divided by 2. This expression editor to x divided by 2. I want to put a slider. I'm going to make the maximum, say, 140 feet. So let me go to 120. That'll be my x. And then for my y, let me put 64. And then we need to put a radius. I'll make this 15. Let me reduce the radius. Now I want to make this into a 35-story high building with 12 feet high floor-to-floor access. So I am going to use the move command. I'm going to put the Z component. I'm going to put the series. So let me copy this. Let me make the maximum 35. So as you can see, I want 35 floors, so that's going to be my count. I want it to step 12 feet for every count. And then put my geometry. Oops. And then okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the points on all of these geometries and produce a graph mapper condition. So I'm going to go to Evaluate Curve. I'm going to reparameterize it. I am going to use a list length because I want to take the number of these geometries and feed it into a graph mapper. I'm going to go to graph mapper. I'm going to go to range. So the domain is from 0 to 1, and we're making this each curve as a reparametrized curve. So it's going to be, the entire length is going to go 0 to 1. So in terms of steps, I have to click x minus 1. I am going to click on here, click on the parameter, and it's already at a default graph. So as you can see, we have a whole series of different graphs. Sine wave. So you can see that's one, but we want to have that arc. So we are going to go and use the conic. Let's see. Or actually, no, not this. Parabola. So let's see how we can get this. Okay, we see this parabola, so we have this. Now we need to loft this geometry, so we need to create another evaluate curve. So I'm going to copy this, but instead of the parameter, I'm going to hit a slider. So as you can see, this point moves the entire length because, like I said, since I reparameterized it, it reads this length as from 0 to 1 as opposed to the actual length. Because if I input the length, you can see the length is 345 feet. And it's much better to use the reparameterize function because it allows you to cover the length without having to worry about what inputs you need to do. So I want to create a sweep to function. So I'm going to interpolate those points. That's one point. That's the next point. Now I want to create an arc here. So I am going to do, I'm going to select the bottom points and the top points. Oops. So I go list item. Oops. I need to do the list item of the points. You can see it's already selected that. I am going to create a list item of that. And I want to create a line. I want to do a curve middle. I want to move this point in the Y direction. And let me just grab one of these. That's a little too much. Let me just adjust this. Yeah, I want to move it there. And then I want to do a arc. So I want to do the arc 3 points. So this is the start. Nope, not this. I want to do arc. Yeah, arc 3 points. This is the start. This is the middle. And this is that. Now I want to make my loft to be a very uniform loft. So I want to do the same thing on the top. And all I have to simply do is just copy this and reverse the list. So let me just group this together. This is going to be one group. And then I am going to copy this. And all I'm simply going to do is take the list and reverse it. So it's going to grab the point from the very top. So I have these 2 points. Okay, so now I want to do a sweep 2. I'm going to make the top and bottom as my rails and these 2 components as my sections. So I can simply just merge these 2 sections. I'm going to go to my sweep function, sweep 2. I'm going to make the first arc as one rail, the second arc as the other, and let me flatten this. Okay, so if I don't flatten, you can see it reads as 2 groups, and we just need to flatten it. So we just created a little bit of a bulge, and you know I can edit this. It looks like it's getting too pronounced. Maybe I can edit. Okay, now the next thing is I want to loft the rest of this geometry. And we will see, so I'm going to make this split item and this split item the 2 rails. So in order for me to get that, I need to work on my shatter component. So let me go here. I'm going to go list item. I'm going to select this component. And then I need to take these points to split. So I'm going to just put this on the top because that'll be easier. So we know that this is the bottom portion. So I'm going to make this a little bit easier on myself. So I am going to scribble and write bottom points. And I am going to copy and type top points. Okay, so we have this curve. So I'm going to go to curve closest point. I'm going to take these 2 curves. I'm going to use the shatter component. Let me see how, okay, you can see my curves are, my points are in 2 different groups, so I need to flatten this to make it work. I'm going to type in shatter, connect the parameter to the curve. I have 2 items, so I'm going to go to list item. Selecting that, so I'm going to hit my slider. And then you have this. So I am going to group this to make it easier on myself. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go write this as bottom curve. So if I want to get the top curve, we know what the solution is. I will write here I'll write here arced curves. Now it's good to organize your definition. I like to type a font and then I click on the middle key and group it. So if I want to get the bottom curve, what we found out is that all I have to do is take this and I'm going to copy it to the bottom, and instead of, I'm going to reverse this list because that'll, when I reverse it, it selects this, and I have to take these 2 points, and then voila, and you see those. So I am gonna name this as upper curve. I'm gonna group this. Now I want to get this geometry to fill. We already know that these are the arcs that I can use for my sections, so I will do a sweep to command. So this will be one of my rails. This will be my section, and then the upper curve. Now, we have this lofted geometry, but there are some problems. If you look at it in plan, there's a bulge. It doesn't look quite symmetrical. And the way to resolve this is that we're just going to have to add more sections. So I am going to disconnect this section. I will type curve. I want to drag this down, and you'll see what I want to do is I'm going to create another set of evaluate curves that are interpolated, and I'm going to just add it into my sections. So I want to maybe put a curve here and a curve there, so I can get the geometry to be a little bit more straight, more uniform. I'm going to type the merge, inputting it there. So I am going to go back to the geometry, and I can simply just copy this. I will copy this. Let me put a curve right here. I want to copy this. Let me put a curve right there. I'm going to interpolate. And let me see what it reads. Yeah, I'm gonna add this merged. Let me see what the result. Okay, I need to flatten this because, and then let me add this into the sections. Let me see how it looks in plan. You can see in plan it is uniform. There are no sorts of awkward bulges. And you can see it is a straight geometry. So we are good. So we can now start building this actual skyscraper. So I am going to go to the brep join. I'm going to flatten this, and you can see it comes out as one geometry. I'm going to cap it. Okay, so it's unable to cap, but that's okay. Let me flatten it here. Okay, well, it's okay if we can't cap it. Now the next thing is I am going to basically split this new geometry, and the best way to go about that is to start with the bounding box. And with the bounding box, I want to brep explode. I want to take one of these edges and divide it by the 34 floors. So I'm going to go to list item. And I know that there are 12 edges in a cube, so I'm going to get my slider. It's going to be 11 because 0 is the first number. So let us... Oh, whoops, let me... Okay, so I see there. So I want to divide this curve. And in terms of the number, we have 35 floors. So let me just let me just type integer. So I'm gonna drag this. So it's 35. So I will do a brep plane. Actually, no, I have to go to my vectors and I need to get, oops, my plane normals. You can see the plane is based on that. So I put those are my planes, and I want to split the join brep. Oops. Okay, I have forgotten to add this geometry. So, and then when I split it, you can see that this geometry is being cut. Let me just hide some of these. Let me start hiding the rest of these things. So you can see that the geometry has been cut in pieces. Now, let's just make sure that the heights are correct. So let me turn on this component. Okay, now that I'm comparing how many splits there are compared to how I split the geometry with the basically 12 feet apart. So basically, it's dividing in such a way that I need to go to the count, and under expression editor, I need to go x minus 1. And now, so I have to divide it instead of 35 times, 34 times. But it still is going to give me the 35 stories. So now you see that whatever I used as my move component to divide the geometry is now relating with how much I'm splitting the new geometry. Okay, so let me get back to this. So now I can just start making all the elements. So I am going to start, I want to start to get the curtain wall in the space. So I am going to offset it, offset, offset curve. Okay, so this offset curve is not working, so I'm going to try a different offset curve. Okay. I want to put my distance as 5 because I want to have the depth to be 5 feet deep. Okay, so we're seeing something funny. This bottom item is offsetting the other direction. So I need to just isolate that, and I'm going to just select and cull it at the same time. Because the curve needs to be, it needs to be basically flipped. So I'm going to go to, oops, I'm going to first do the cull index. I'm going to put 0. I want it to be the 0 item. So this is what's being read as 0. So I just need to do is reverse the list. I'm going to do a list item. Again, it's selecting this, so I just need to reverse it. I need to flip this curve. I'm going to merge these two elements, flatten it, and then I am going to plug it in. Okay, so everything is happening hunky-dory. I need to cull this element because there isn't going to be a floor on the top level, so I'm going to end this. Oh, okay, so I need to flatten this because as you can see, it's all been grouped together. So, and then I have to reverse it, and now this thing has been hidden. Now, on my curves, I am going to make a concrete slab that's going to be 6 inches, and that will just be 0.5 feet. So I'm going to go to extrude. I'm going to put Z. I'm going to use my expression editor and put -x because I want it to go down. I'm going to just put a panel with 0.5. Okay, so it looks like it's extruding. So let me cap it. Cap the holes. And then now I want to build my curtain wall. So I have this. Now, as you know, I made the deck to deck 12 feet. So let me grab this as an integer. I'm going to go to this 12 feet. I'm going to carry this over. So I have these curves. So I have to subtract this with the slab. So the height of the curtain wall is going to be 11'6". So I'm going to go to subtraction. So the 12 minus 0.5. I'm going to go extrude. I'm going to go to Z. Okay. So I have that. Now I need to get a railing. So let me start hiding things. Let me bring all of this here. I'm going to start hiding everything. Now the last thing that I'm missing, and as you can see with this element, I'm going to have to cull this because there's no patio on the ground level. So I'm going to just go to cull index. I'm going to bring my panel. I'm going to reverse the list. I'm going to just hide this. Okay, so we see, okay, now the next thing is I need to put a railing. So I will basically, I can just go back to this curve and I'll just extrude it. Extrude. Z. Railing is 42 inches, so that's going to be 3.5 feet. Okay. So I have these elements. So let me just start using my color preview. Custom preview. Okay, so there is the curtain wall. Let me go to swatch. Just make it that. And then the slab. And let me just hide all of this. And actually one more thing I do need to do is I need to cull this element. Probably have to reverse it. Let me, and And there you have it. Here is the skyscraper using the Graph Mapper tool. Thank you.